Hey guys, tonight we slip into a world where the light you trust might have been born from death itself. You probably won't survive this story with your view of candlelight untouched. The air will feel thicker, the shadows closer. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk down a narrow medieval alleyway, the kind that smells of ash and honey. Somewhere nearby, a bell tolls, not for prayer but for death. You follow it, past rows of shuttered windows and sagging thatch, until you reach a door with melted wax pooling like frozen tears along its frame. Behind it, a woman hums. Her fingers are steady, her breath slow. She's not praying, she's pouring. They called them the candle women, though no one ever called them that to their faces. You might find one beside a dying noble's bed, coaxing a final flame for his last rites. Or outside a plague pit, melting down wax scraped from the offerings of the dead. Their work balanced between holy and profane, light and rot. To make a candle for the soul's passage was a sacred act, but to use the wax of a body already gone, well, that was something else. It's said the first candle women appeared in Europe sometime in the 13th century when the church declared that wax made from bees, creatures of purity, was the only acceptable light before God. But beeswax was expensive. So, in the poorer quarters, women began collecting scraps from funerals, vigils, and abandoned chapels, melting them into new candles to sell back to mourners. Nothing went to waste, not even death's residue. You watch her now, hands steady, face half lit by the furnace's orange glow. The smell is strange, sweet, smoky, faintly human. She stirs melted wax with a wooden rod, whispering names. Each name corresponds to a wick. Every candle carries a soul. When the wax cools, she'll scratch a symbol into the side, a cross, a spiral, sometimes just an initial, and place it on the shelf with the others. Her entire life is measured in inches of wick and ounces of wax. One chronicler from Rouen wrote that such women spoke softly to flame as others to infants. It wasn't meant kindly. Candle women lived outside guilds, outside protection, outside respect. They handled materials touched by the dead, and that made them untouchable. But they were needed. Death was constant, and someone had to prepare the light that guided souls home. You lean closer. Her voice drops to a whisper as she works. Light for the living, warmth for the gone. A flicker of doubt enters your mind. What if the wax remembered? What if light itself could store grief, or guilt, or something worse? Some said the candles made from death wax burned differently, blue at the base, whispering faintly as they melted. Historians still argue whether any of these women actually used human fat in their mixtures, or if the rumor was just another way to mark them as impure. Yet, in 18th century Paris, police records do note the arrest of a waxwife, caught with suspicious tallow, possibly from a medical dissection hall. Fact or folklore, you can't help but imagine that faint shimmer of skin oil in the candlelight beside a tomb. There's something deeply intimate about this act. Every time she melts wax, she reclaims something forgotten. Every flicker of light she sells is a tiny resurrection. Her world is small, fire, wax, shadow, but it sustains her. And though she doesn't say it aloud, she knows the truth. When she dies, another candle woman will come to melt down her own offerings, fold her essence into a new wick, and keep the light alive. It's an endless cycle. The living burning for the dead fueling the living. In that quiet workshop, the boundaries blur. The flame trembles, the air sighs. You take a breath and realize it smells faintly of honey again, warm, gentle, deceptively innocent. One final spark leaps as she seals another mold. For a second, it looks like a heartbeat pulsing through wax. You blink and it's gone. Only the candle remains, soft and glowing, a perfect lie in the dark. You wake to the sound of dripping, slow, deliberate, rhythmic. It's wax this time, not water. Thick yellow drops fall from a hanging taper, landing on a stone floor blackened with soot. The smell is heady, a mixture of beeswax, iron, and something faintly rancid. Welcome to the second layer of the candle women's world, where light is born from the bones of both beasts and saints. You step inside a dim workroom where half a dozen women move in silence. The air trembles with heat. Cauldrons bubble over charcoal braziers, each one holding a different hue of wax. White for purity, red for martyrdom, brown for humility, black for remembrance. No one speaks. The only sound is the hiss of melting and the creak of cooling molds. You notice one of them, older, her hair wrapped in linen, grinding something with a pestle. She looks up briefly and says, "Bone dust strengthens the flame." You smile uncertainly, thinking she's joking. But she isn't. In the early centuries of Christendom, candles weren't just symbols of devotion. They were conduits of presence. The faithful believed that certain materials, especially those drawn from relics, could make a flame more truthful. Wax mixed with powdered bone, oil from saintly remains, or even a drop of blood might burn brighter, cleaner, or longer. Historians still argue whether this was superstition or symbolic chemistry, but the practice lingered for centuries, especially among women who handled death close up. The candle women had recipes for everything. To make a candle for a newborn's baptism, they'd mix fresh beeswax with a pinch of salt for purity. For funerals, they used tallow from lamb or goat, creatures seen as mediators between worlds. And for plague victims, well, let's just say the formula wasn't shared lightly. You'd need vinegar, rosemary, and a few unmentionable ingredients from the graveyard's edge. One joke among medieval gravediggers went, "If you smell rosemary on a waxwife, run." Apparently it wasn't for perfume, it was for preservation. You pick up a half-finished candle from the table. The wax is uneven, marbled with faint streaks of gray. When you touch it, your fingertip leaves a smudge. The woman beside you notices. "That one's for a revenant," she says casually. "They burn faster." You blink. "Revenant, as in someone who comes back." She shrugs, as if that's explanation enough. It's easy to forget how blurred the line once was between religion and magic. The church wanted candles to illuminate sanctity, but the people, especially women who lived close to death, saw them as tools of power. You didn't just light a candle. You asked it to do something. Heal a fever, ward off spirits, guide the dead, curse a thief. The candle women knew which combination of wax, wick, and whisper worked best for each. In some villages, they were halfway between apothecary and witch. A grieving mother might bring a lock of her child's hair and pay to have it sealed in wax so the soul could find warmth on cold nights in purgatory. Others would bring a drop of a lover's blood or a shred of their garment to bind affection through flame. And that's where things get murky. There's a 15th century parish record from Lubeck mentioning a woman accused of warming corpses with forbidden fire. The phrase sounds like nonsense until you read the margin note. Candela mortuorum, candle of the dead. Supposedly, she'd made candles from melted tallow collected at executions. But the real horror wasn't what she used. It was that they burned for days without dying. Modern historians debate if this was metaphor or miracle. But in that dim workroom, you realize it doesn't matter. Women believed the dead left traces, and those traces could be coaxed back to life in wax. Every flicker was a heartbeat, every drip a sigh. You glance at the shelves lining the wall. Each candle has a small parchment tag tied with thread. Names, dates, occasions. Some are labeled only infant. Others simply say wanderer. The women know each one. They can tell you who commissioned it, who died, and who lit it in remembrance. This isn't just a workshop. It's a registry of grief. You take another step closer to the cauldron and feel the heat licking at your shins. The wax within churns like molten gold. One of the younger women leans over and whispers, "Never let the flame go out." It remembers the last thing it saw. You almost laugh until you see the expression in her eyes, dead serious, almost fearful. The candle beside her guttered a moment ago. She's already relighting it with a shaking hand. Beeswax and bone, smoke and soul, the recipe for remembrance. The world outside might call it superstition, but for these women, it's survival. Because when light is your livelihood, you learn quickly. It doesn't just reveal what's around you. Sometimes it reveals you. You hear coins clinking before you see them, tiny dull sounds swallowed by the hiss of boiling wax. It's early morning, and the candle women are setting up in the square, just outside the churchyard gates. Their baskets are covered in linen to hide the flickering silhouettes inside. Candles still warm, still soft. The men who pass by avert their eyes. The women, though, they stop, they whisper their needs, slide copper coins into cracked palms, and walk away, holding light like contraband. You follow one of them, the oldest, through a maze of market stalls. Her name is Alice, though everyone calls her the Meltwife. Her back is bent from years of lifting cauldrons, but her eyes, sharp, unreadable, miss nothing. She sells to priests, bakers, widows, even the undertaker's apprentice. Everyone needs her. No one acknowledges her. It's the quiet economy of the dead. The church forbids direct trade on holy ground, but that doesn't stop anyone. In medieval England, the sale of soul candles often took place just beyond consecrated walls. People bought them for vigils, funerals, or the seventh night after a burial, when they believed the spirit still lingered near the body. The candle women were the middle ground between faith and fear, a necessary shadow trade. By midday, Alice's apron is dusted with wax flakes and her basket half empty. She squints at the cathedral doors where the priests preach against sin, and you catch her muttering, "They bless what I make, then curse my hands." And she's not wrong. The clergy relied on her work. Her candles lit the relic shrines, burned during processions, illuminated mass, but they never admitted it publicly. Officially, candle making was a guild craft, reserved for men. Yet behind the scenes, women like Alice kept the flame alive. Literally. A curious irony, isn't it? The most sacred light in the church often came from the hands least welcome inside it. She tells you the trade runs deeper than wax. Sometimes people pay not in coin but in secrets, confessions whispered between dips of wick. A widow might reveal how her husband truly died. A priest might offer absolution in exchange for silence, and occasionally someone comes with a darker request. Make me a candle that burns down fast. You don't ask why, you already know. In France, there was even a name for it, the cierge maudit, or cursed candle. Burned backwards, wick downward, it was said to cause ruin or illness to its intended target. Scholars today think it was mostly rumor, a slander against women in trades considered too mystical. But historians still argue whether some candle women really made them. After all, accidents happen when wax runs too hot. Or so they'd say. You follow Alice back to her cottage by twilight. Inside, the air hums with the smell of melting tallow. A younger apprentice tends the fire while Alice counts her coins. There's not much profit in deathlight. The coins are dull, the hours long. But in a world without insurance, medicine, or mercy, a single candle can mean safety. A light that promises the soul won't get lost on its way home. She reaches for a jar and lifts the lid. Inside, bits of wax float like pale petals in oil. For the good ones, she murmurs. Then she opens another. Dark, cracked, half-burned scraps. For the restless. You shiver. The jars clink softly like bones knocking in a shallow grave. In the corner, a small ledger rests open. The handwriting is neat, deliberate. Names, dates, symbols. It's not bookkeeping, it's remembrance. Every candle she's ever made, every life she's ever lit. You realize the candle women's trade isn't just economic, it's emotional infrastructure. Before tombstones were common, before literacy spread, candles were the archives of grief. You bought one to say what you couldn't write. You lit it to keep someone's name from dissolving into time. Some of Alice's clients are still alive. they buy future candles. One for when they die, so their light will already be waiting. It sounds morbid, but there's comfort in that, knowing your flame's been prepared, your wax already waiting its turn in the fire. A child knocks on the door, a messenger from the monastery. He carries a sealed note and 3 coins. Another commission. Alice opens it and sighs. They want 30 beeswax tapers for Saint's Day, she mutters, and they'll pay in blessings again. You can't help but laugh softly. Blessings don't buy bread. She smirks. No, but they burn just fine. One of the quirkiest records you'll ever find in medieval archives is from 1432, where a convent petitioned the city council to let them keep their candle profits instead of turning them over to the male guilds. The reasoning? We are nearer to the dead than they. Try arguing with that logic. As night deepens, the workshop glows gold again. Alice dips another wick, her hands trembling slightly from age but steady in rhythm. You realize you're watching a dying craft in its prime, an invisible empire powered by grief, devotion, and just enough superstition to keep the world turning. Outside, the church bells toll again. You watch the flame tremble as if it knows what's coming. The age of light is shifting, from sacred to industrial, from hand to factory. But for now, in this fragile hour, the candle women still rule the dark. The room you enter this time is smaller, darker, half chapel, half laboratory. The walls are covered with candle soot, and the air feels alive, trembling with old prayers and bad science. You've wandered into the ritual side of the candle women's world, where wax isn't just melted but interpreted. You hear it before you see it, the soft hiss of flame and the faint scrape of a stylus on wax. A woman sits before an altar of flickering candles, her eyes wide, fixed on the dance of light. She's not making them tonight, she's reading them. Every drip, every curl of smoke, every sputtering wick is a sentence in a language that only a few still speak. To the candle women, wax could reveal what was hidden, sins, omens, even future storms. It was called ceromancy, divination through wax. You watch her pour a ladle of molten wax into a basin of cold water. It hisses as it hits, hardens instantly, and floats, forming a tangled shape that looks somehow deliberate. She studies it silently, then mutters, "It'll be a death before dawn." You wonder if she's guessing, or if she truly sees something. In the 16th century, midwives and candle makers were often accused of using wax in witchcraft, pouring it over graves or into bowls to read the souls of the dead. But it wasn't always malicious. In many villages, it was considered protective. A melted candle from a funeral could be shaped into a charm to keep disease away or to help the deceased find peace in the path of smoke. Historians still argue whether these women believed in their own magic or if the rituals were just performance, ceremonial comfort for a fearful community. Maybe both. After all, it's hard to tell where belief ends and necessity begins when every night might bring another funeral. The woman before you, her name might be Marjorie or Agnes or something that's been lost entirely, takes a thin candle and presses it into your palm. Don't light it yet, she warns. It remembers who holds it first. You smile nervously, thinking it's another one of their jokes. But then she dips the candle's tip into the flame and whispers a phrase so soft it could be a prayer or a curse. The flame turns blue for half a second before settling back to gold. You tell yourself it's just a trick of oxygen, but still, your heart beats faster. Candle rites were everywhere in medieval and early modern Europe. Some were sacred, the vigil candle that burned beside the dying, the marriage flame symbolizing unity, the holy taper used to bless new homes. Others were stranger. In Poland, villagers lit wax figures shaped like animals to ward off famine. In Ireland, women melted candle drippings onto bread to cure fevers. And in parts of Italy, the dead's candle burned until its smoke vanished entirely, proof the soul had been accepted by heaven. You watch as Marjorie traces a symbol into melted wax on the table, a spiral within a circle. "For safe passing," she murmurs. The wax cools in moments, forming a pale sigil that looks harmless, almost pretty. She folds it into a pouch, ties it with thread, and places it beside a row of others. Each one holds a story. Each one is both offering and warning. Then she gestures toward the corner, where a massive candle stands alone. Black, unlit, its wick braided thick like rope. "That one's for when the village dies," she says quietly. You laugh uneasily. "You mean if?" "No," she answers, eyes fixed on the dark wax. "When?" You don't press the question. Some knowledge isn't meant to be poked with humor. There's something profoundly theatrical about it all. The flickering lights, the murmured Latin phrases, the smell of smoke sweetened with honey. It's easy to forget that half the world outside is already turning away from this kind of magic. Scientists are dissecting light, calling it wave and particle. Factories are making candles by the thousand. But here, for one last century, light still has personality, still has memory. You remember the phrase from earlier, never let the flame go out. Now it feels different, less warning, more prayer. Because for the candle women, flame wasn't metaphor. It was a living thing, born from effort and devotion, capable of rebellion if mishandled. She shows you another ritual. 2 candles lit side by side. One represents the living, one the dead. If both burn evenly, all is well. If one gutters, something's wrong. You stare and swear you see the left flame tremble as if responding to your breath. You look away, pretending not to notice. Across the continent, similar practices existed under different names. In Germany, it was Totenlicht, the light of the dead. In Spain, Vela del Alma, the soul's candle. Everywhere, wax carried faith. But it also carried fear. The quiet dread that maybe, when the flame finally goes out, it won't be your candle that burns next. The woman blows out the last taper and smoke hurls upward like a ghost reluctant to leave. The room feels colder instantly. "Light is a debt," she says into the dark. "We borrow it and we pay it back in the end." You find yourself staring at your own reflection in the window, faintly lit by dying embers. Your face looks older, maybe even unfamiliar, as if the candlelight had peeled something back. You wonder, just for a heartbeat, if the wax remembered you too. By now you can almost smell the end coming, the faint sweetness of cooling wax, the last breaths of a dying fire. You stand in the same alley where it all began, but everything feels smaller, quieter, as if the light itself is holding its breath. The candle women are vanishing. Their workshops are closing one by one, their secrets sinking like molten wax into the cracks of time. It starts, as most endings do, with progress. Factories rise across Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries, filling entire cities with machines that can pour, dip, and mold 1,000 candles an hour. No hymns, no whispers, no prayer to flame, just the hiss of steam and the grind of metal. Paraffin replaces beeswax, gaslight replaces the hearth. The candle women, once keepers of light and grief, are suddenly obsolete. You walk through one of those new factories. It's blindingly bright, unnaturally clean. Rows of men in aprons move in rhythm, pressing levers, stamping molds. The air smells of oil and chemical polish. There's light everywhere, but it feels wrong, flat, sterile, too obedient. No spirit flickers here. Some of the old women tried to adapt. They sold candles for romance instead of mourning, marketed scent instead of symbolism. But others couldn't. "You can't sell a prayer in a box," one wrote bitterly in an 1837 letter to a parish priest. Her name's lost, but her tone lingers, defiant, exhausted, aware that her kind were fading like smoke. Historians still argue whether the candle women truly disappeared or if they simply went underground, folded into the folk traditions that survived industrialization. In rural France, women still bless their candles on Candlemas, whispering old words that never quite made it into scripture. In parts of Eastern Europe, widows still melt funeral wax into protective charms for the living. Maybe they never vanished at all. Maybe they just dimmed. You find one last workshop clinging to existence on the edge of a seaside town. The woman there, gray-haired, eyes like embers, melts wax in a battered copper pot. Her hands tremble, but the rhythm is the same as it's always been. Pour, cool, trim, breathe. She looks up and smiles faintly. "You came for the story," she says, as if she's been expecting you all along. Her name's Aline. She's one of the last of them. You watch her shape a candle so thin it almost bends under its own weight. "This one's for memory," she murmurs. "We used to make them for the plague dead. Now people buy them for birthdays." She laughs softly, not bitterly, just tiredly. Every age has its light. You ask her what she thinks of electricity, of light bulbs. She shrugs. "It's still fire," she says, "just trapped differently." And then she tells you something that stops your breath. She still collects remnants, scraps of half-burned candles from cemeteries, church steps, even broken votives from hospitals. She melts them all together into communal light, a single flame made from countless forgotten ones. You realize she's the last link in a 1,000-year chain of grief and faith and fire. When she dies, no one will remember the old recipes, the bone dust, the rosemary oil, the careful prayers whispered into molten wax. The knowledge will cool, harden, and vanish. You ask if she's afraid of that. She shakes her head. No. Wax forgets faster than people. But flame remembers everything. Outside, the wind howls against the window. She lights one of her candles and sets it on the sill. The flame wavers, then steadies, burning calm against the storm. It's the same color as it always was, gold at the heart, haloed in faint blue. You think about all the hands that shaped light before her. Alice, Marjorie, the unnamed women who melted grief into beauty, and how every one of them left a little of themselves behind in the glow. You watch the wax pool, the flame bowing low. The room smells faintly of honey, of age, of something like peace. For the first time tonight, you understand. These women didn't make candles for the dead. They made them with the dead. Every light was a conversation, a soft argument against oblivion. The world outside hums with neon and screens and speed. But for now, inside this tiny room, you can still hear the heartbeat of an ancient craft, the slow pulse of molten wax cooling, whispering, waiting. The candle women may be gone, but their warmth lingers in every wick, every flame, every soft shimmer that still defies the dark. And when you finally step back into the night, you catch yourself glancing at the nearest streetlight, half expecting to see a flicker of gold that wasn't there before. Maybe you did. Maybe the flame followed you home. The night softens now. The fire that once roared in your mind settles into a low, contented hum. You picture a single candle flickering somewhere far away, its light breathing slow, like sleep. Every ripple of wax cools a little more, every shadow stretches and sighs. You've traveled centuries tonight, through graveyards, through workshops, through quiet hands that shaped the way we remember the dead. Let it all fade gently now. You can almost feel the echo of their labor, the women bending over flame, eyes reflecting gold, their whispers stitched into smoke. They didn't fear the dark. They worked with it. That's what made them powerful, even in silence. And maybe that's the lesson hiding here in the wax. That light doesn't need to shout to matter. Sometimes it just needs to stay. So breathe slower, let the story dim. Somewhere, another candle is burning right now for someone you'll never meet. Its flame curls and trembles and holds on anyway. Just like theirs did. Just like yours will someday. The last image you carry is small but vivid. A single wick bending under its own warmth, the room filled with the soft scent of honey and smoke. No fear, no noise. Only the quiet persistence of light doing what it was made to do, endure. Good night, traveler. May your flame burn steady, and may your shadows learn to dance kindly beside it.